A wise man once said, in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is only war. Warhammer 40,000 Gladius Relics of War attempts to create a civilization-like 4X game against that backdrop, but can't seem to get away from the fact that war really is all there is to do in the 40k universe. Luckily, it does war pretty well. Gladius puts you in command of one of four distinct factions: the elite Space Marines, the savage Orcs, the creepy Necrons, and the dutiful troopers I'm told I'm supposed to call the Astra Militarum now, even though to me they'll always be the Imperial Guard. Each has a unique and expansive unit roster that covers a lot of bases from the tabletop, with everything from Space Marine dreadnoughts to Necron Doomsday arcs. Almost every unit has a clear, straightforward combat role that can be played off of others to create potent combos. Turn by turn, marching a column of Space Marines supported by deadly heroes and tough-as-nails tanks feels great. It's a shining refinement of the one unit per tile combat introduced to the two most recent Civ games, and it fits 40k really well. Deciding how to prioritize targets, flex my line to keep wounded units out of the line of fire, and set up vicious artillery barrages and flanking maneuvers almost always satisfied my appetite for precisely orchestrated obliteration. Gladius really is a terrific wargame. The caveat here is that it's not necessarily a terrific 4X. As your armies march out to claim victory, you'll also be claiming tiles for your cities, filling them with resource and unit-generating buildings, and researching technologies from a semi-linear list to unlock bonuses and new units. It's all competent and functional, but I usually found that it boiled down to seeing which resource I was running low on, claiming a tile with a bonus to that resource, and building a production building there so I wouldn't have to worry about it again for a while. It's very reactive as opposed to encouraging long-term planning, and doesn't force a lot of tough decisions. Each faction also has a variety of unique mechanics that sometimes felt thematic and fun, but other times felt a little bit flat. On the stronger side, Space Marines can only ever build one city, and must secure strategic resources around the map by placing smaller, less defensible outposts that can't produce units or other structures. The Necrons can only found cities on buried Necron tombs, scattered sparsely across Gladius Prime, and use ore instead of food as their upkeep resource. Some of the ones that didn't work as well include the Orcs Wah, which gives up to a 25% damage bonus when your influence resource is high. But since Orcs generate influence every time they deal damage and don't have much to spend it on, I found that I pretty much kept it maxed out with no challenge or difficult choices from the mid-game onward. There's also no diplomacy to speak of, which again is kind of a given with the theme. You can set specific factions to locked teams in custom games if you want to fight a united front of Imperial Guard and Space Marines. There's no trade or negotiation of any kind once you hit go. Ultimately, I didn't find that this bothered me much. The constant state of conflict between all factions actually led to some of my favorite, most intense encounters. Like when I spotted a Space Marine army coming from the north and pulled my Orcs back so the oncoming force would smash into the Necron front I'd been chipping away at, letting my enemies do my work for me. Glorious 3- or 4-way bloodbaths, the likes of which you'd rarely see in other 4X games, aren't uncommon. While it didn't wow me as a competitor to Endless Legend or Civ 6 in the 4X race, there's a lot of action-saturated, tactically driven fun to be had when you look at Gladius Relics of War for what it truly is: a really well-done turn-based 40k wargame. It's one of the best turn-based 40k games I've played through that lens. All the other mechanics exist purely as adequate supports for throwing another wave of boys into the meat grinder, for the glory of Gork and or Mork. Maybe that's thematically appropriate in the grim darkness of the far future, but if Gladius wants to call itself 4X and not just cut straight to the wargame chase, it could have made those elements more interesting to justify the label.